Hey everyone, welcome to Live with Cami. And we are so excited today because we are going to talk with Lisa Luciano. We are talking about online safety and success. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is so important for our kids today. And it's so important for us too, in general. I mean, we need to know about this stuff for ourselves, but then also for our kids as tech changes all the time and it becomes more crazy. We really need to get a handle on how our kids can use technology in a safe way that allows them to get what they need to get out of it and use it easily and learn how to use it in, but also make sure that they're watching out for different things. And Lisa is such a genius at this. She's been teaching technology for ever for even in the classroom. She's such an expert at this, you guys, and she's really been through the gamut of watching all this technology explode, and she's kept up to date on all of it. And now she's just really seen the need for parents to be really informed. And that is one thing I know that most parents that I talk to are really afraid about, like, okay, I need to make sure my kids are, I can look at their stuff, I can monitor, I can do this, but we don't know how to do that. And it's always changing. And then they're kind of, like Lisa says, they're kind of sneaky too. So they come up with a lot of different ways to get around different things. So it's important for us to stay aware and for our kids to stay aware. So she's been teaching this, and I'm super excited to share her with you guys today. Lisa, thank you for so much for joining us, and I'm so excited about just this important topic here because I have followed a few people on Facebook for years now, just talking about phones and stuff like that, and social media for kids and things. And I'm so happy to find someone who actually like can guide and mentor people through this process and mentor families. Super, super important. So Lisa, can you share with us a little bit about how you got started and just how you got into this industry? What inspired you to do that?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Cami. You were right. I was teaching forever. I taught technology for 40 years, but over time, as you suggested, it has changed dramatically. And when it became kids on computers, on the internet, that was it. Everything was different. And my principal actually came to me one day and he said, "Can you create a digital literacy program?" And I said, "If I can figure out what it is, I'll do it," because it was so new at the time. And the component that made it different, because I was teaching digital tools, was being safe online. And when I started digging into it, and also things that I had already started to observe in my classroom, I thought, why isn't anybody else doing this? So I looked, there was nothing online that I could find that anyone had come up with. So I created a program. And I was teaching in a middle school at the time. I taught middle school, high school, and college age students. And we did a pilot program for sixth graders. And I thought, if I can teach 10 and 11-year-olds, anybody can learn this. And if we can get them young enough, that's a really big goal as well. It went really well. So then the principal said, "Can you do it for seventh and eighth graders?" And I'm like, well, let me think about this because you're not going to teach them the same thing. So I made a 3-year program, and it became so needed that it was required of every student in the building, including special ed and ELL kids, because they figured just because they have other challenges doesn't mean they can't keep themselves safe. So that's when I started to realize this was something that could be taught to almost anyone of almost any age. And I've adapted it many times for different age levels because every age level needs its own, has its own issues and needs different situations. But then I started thinking, is that enough? And I had parents coming to me, like when we'd have an open house night or what, and saying, "Can I take your course?" And I said, "I wish you could, because I think you need to know as much as your children do." So unfortunately, at that point, I'd done it for 10 years and I was in year 40. And I said, "You know what? I think the time is for me to put this in somebody else's hands. I'll teach someone else how to do it because I want to move on to other things in my life." But that was the year of COVID. And that's when I saw what was happening when our children were being left online through no one's fault, but the teachers weren't in the classrooms with them to watch what they were doing. Parents either weren't there because they were just trying to juggle everything that was going on at the time or didn't know what to look for. And I said, "You know what? I get back in the game. I have to help with this because I have a program that works and I know I can help parents too." So I started offering the program online. The problem has become that kids are so overbooked, and also doesn't matter the age, although certain ages are a little more challenging, you can't tell them anything. The real danger is not what they're finding online, it's that they don't know what they don't know, and so they can't protect themselves, or they think they can handle it and they can't. The bad guys are really smart, unfortunately, and good at what they do. So now I'm shifting my focus to helping parents and grandparents because, first of all, they need to know what's going on. The knowledge is everything. That's the starting point. You have to know what your kids are really doing, not what they're telling you they're doing or letting you see what they're doing, what's going on, because they're not smart about protecting themselves, but they're smart about getting somewhere that gets them in trouble. So that's what I'm working on now is I feel like we need to even the playing field so that the parents and grandparents know enough that they can have a conversation with their kids and not have the children say, oh, you're old, you don't know anything. You're not online. You don't know what's really going on, or I can handle it. I know how to take care of myself. You would know what's okay, what's not okay. And also you would have the ability to monitor, which is very important, and also make adjustments, especially depending upon the age. The younger they are, the easier it is to create a safer environment for them because they don't know what they're missing anyway. But we, as adults, really just don't know enough about how bad it is. Like, for example, if I had children, young children now, no Google, forget it. No phone, no social media, nothing until at least high school, at least. And I know parents who it's hard, but they've been able to do that. And that's made a difference because our kids are being guided, they're being stalked, they're having their brains rewired. They can't think the same way anymore. They don't see the world the same way, and their behavior has dramatically shifted in the wrong direction because they see these things online and they think either I want to be that, or if they're doing it, I should be able to do it too. And I'm sure you'd find a lot of parents saying, from 3 and up, pretty much, maybe even younger. I saw a 2-year-old the other day with the mother's iPhone in her hands. That is insanity because they find their way into trouble or the trouble finds them. And also, that should not be the new pacifier, to keep them quiet and keep them calm, but that's what we're doing. But there's just too much that is not safe. They shouldn't be on YouTube, TikTok. I mean, we know some of the main suspects, but things like Google, it's not safe, even if you put in the parental controls. It's just not enough. And there are better things like DuckDuckGo is a fantastic browser for anybody of any age, but especially the young ones, because if they don't realize what they're missing, it looks just like Google to them, but it is going to filter out all of the bad things that they shouldn't even be getting into. And the videos, no child should be on YouTube, period. Even with the YouTube child safe version, it's not enough. The bad guys find their way around it. So that's how I am where I am. I want to try to educate as many people if the children need to be educated. And also don't have to be young children. I have a program for kids getting ready to go to college because think about it. This may be the first time in their lives nobody's going to watch what they're doing online. But that doesn't mean they're safe. They're just older, but they're not smarter when it comes to online safety. That is different. So I'm trying to help whoever needs the help. I've worked with families, I've worked with individuals, children, the adults, whoever wants to learn. And if you know as an adult what they can and can't do or should not be doing, you can guide them. You can control them. They will sneak behind your back the minute they think you're watching. So there are ways that you can do that. And you can also have a little more to say about what they can and can't do as long as they're still under your roof. So that's what I'm doing right now, is trying to just educate everybody because the bad guys are just running wild and they know how to use the internet. That's their playground, unfortunately. And we don't see it coming, so we can't protect ourselves.
Yeah, it's so amazing how it's grown beyond what we can keep up with as parents a lot of times because the kids are in it all the time. They're always talking about it and they're always sharing things. And we as parents who are like trying to go to work and trying to do our house stuff and trying to just, go through life, we can't possibly keep up with everything. So it's really difficult for us to understand all the ins and outs and what's out there. And I know, talking with a lot of parents, that having their kids on social media pulls them away from the family a lot. And you guys know that I'm all about like how we can make homeschool connections. And you guys, homeschooling is exactly the beauty that Lisa's talking about, is because we can actually look at this stuff. I know in my husband's classroom, he teaches middle school, and he has a program. I forget what it's called, but it's actually like, he has a program. He can put up all of their screens on the board, and everybody can see what everybody's doing. And so if they're playing a game or they're doing something like that, then they can see it, and he can shut it down. He has the ability just to click
Yeah,
one
I
click,
had
shut
that
them
too
down. It was
in
so
school.
so great, right?
Oh, I
But
loved
it's
it.
so, I wish we had that for our kids, right? That we could
Mhm,
just have that on there and just see what they're doing all the time. But I know that that's something that's really difficult when we're trying to get them, in other places. I know my son's, he doesn't have a phone. He's 15 and a half,
good.
and he's never had a phone. He doesn't want a phone. But I know when he
Better.
starts driving, it's going to be a little tricky, and we have to really plan for him on how that's gonna work out. I'm trying to just push it a little bit longer. Like, you're never allowed to drive anywhere where you can't, have a gab phone or something like that, so he
Right.
can't only call me. But it's so crazy just what's out there now. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and to have an actual course that guides people through is so so important. And you already talked about some of the dangers for us, and we know some things. But tell me, I know you told the story the other day about the student you had that had a friend that went through your course, and then had, luckily, she there was a friend that you ended up actually catching her in, or setting up a sting for
Mhm.
this predator. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's the one that convinced me because I couldn't shake it off after it happened, and when I realized how close we came to losing her. And that's kind of what motivates me when I think of that girl and what might have been had I not been teaching this to someone. She was 13 and she pretended to be 23 in a profile on social media. One of the major things I told them never to do. She, of course, attracted a predator. Predators are frighteningly evil, but also so smart. So what happened was she got in deep with this. This is another, these are so many signs to look for. And that's one of the things I teach when you should start to think this might be happening. She didn't get along with her mom. And so she was looking for relief from that. So I guess the knight in shining armor. And she found what she thought was, but of course, he thought she was 23. So we thought. So she started to get in too deep, and something he was saying must have disturbed her because she didn't go to her mother because she thought mom was going to take away the computer. And that's the worst thing, is that they think that's what's going to happen. They will never tell you, and you have to keep the lines of communication open with them. It's your only chance of really trying to intervene in enough time. So she went to a friend who had also taken my course. And one of the things I taught also was if someone won't help themselves for whatever reason, they're afraid or embarrassed, or that's why a lot of cyberbullies get away with it, because the victim is convinced they deserve this because that's what the bully tells them. So they're ashamed to admit they're being bullied. But anyway, the friend came to me one day and she said, Miss L, she's in big trouble. She's scared, but she will not go to her mother. And you told us we should do this. We should help people. And I said, yes, you're doing the right thing. But she got scared and she's like, but she's going to be mad at me. She's going to hate me. I said, no, if what you said is correct, you just saved her life. I will take it from here. That's the thing too, is they have to be able to just go to someone without consequences that scare them into silence. So I literally ran across the building. It was a big school, to the principal. She called the police. The police came in within minutes. Fortunately, everybody believed everybody. If that chain had broken down, this would have gone nowhere. So the police set up a sting. They got permission from the mom. Of course, the mom had to find out anyway, to look in the emails. And what they saw was so disturbing that they decided they had to hunt this guy down. They thought he was local. So they gave her a police escort to school for 2 weeks because they were afraid he was going to grab her. And that was his plan. He was going to snatch her. And so they finally got him. Whatever they knew about him, we don't know if it was past things he had done or what he was going to do to this girl. It was enough to send him to jail. And in those days, this is a few years ago, there were not laws like that. So it had to be pretty bad what he had planned for her. And the thing that keeps me up at night to this day is when we found out who he was a teacher aide in our building. He had been stalking her every minute. He knew exactly who she was. She had no idea, nor did we, that this was the guy who was doing this to her. And that's what kids need to understand too, is it's usually somebody local. And the large percentage of the time, stalkers or predators are people they already know. Could be friends, family members, community members, teachers. I hate to admit that, but it's true. And that's the thing that still gives me chills when I think, had any part of this broken down, we would never have seen her again, because she just was looking for something, and the predators sense that. They have a profile of victims. When they go into social media and somebody comes in and they start posting or they interact or whatever, they start rating them and saying, oh, this is one. She'd be good. I could get her. And then they groom them and then scare them into submission. Sometimes they'll ask for inappropriate pictures or videos and then say, you leave me, you back out of this, guess who's going to see all this? Everybody. So they blackmail them. It's called sextortion. Or they just scare them, say, oh, I thought you liked me. I thought, we were really close. I'll just leave. I don't have to be in your life anymore. And that scares them. So they're so good at sizing people up, and they look for someone who's looking for something that they don't have in their lives. And that's why, if we can keep the lines of communication open and tell that there's a gap, there's something missing. Like the mom came to me. I had a meeting with her one day before all this happened. And she said, we fight all the time, my daughter and I. And I'm thinking, well, that's really unfortunate. It did not occur to me at that moment that this is where it would lead. But you'll see behavioral changes, like if they're being cyberbullied. Suddenly they will make excuses why they don't want to go to school. I don't feel well. I this, I that, because they know that's where the bully is. A lot of times the cyberbully does their thing online, but they're actually in the same environment with that child. So you will see they'll become more aggressive. They'll withdraw. There are things that start to change that you can look for and say something else is going on. And if you add that to they're online all the time, then you have to start looking into their devices, looking at the history. Where did they go? How many times did they go to that website? Who is that? And if they pull away from the real world, your friends, their family, that's a sign that they found something else online that they like better. And so it's a complex thing, but it's doable. The that's why I created a system, because I know how overwhelming this must be for parents, because you've got scammers, cyberbullies, predators, social media, and on it goes. I have 10 different categories that I put things in of something that can go wrong online. These online challenges where they teach kids, hang yourself and see if you wake up after you pass out. It's called the pass out challenge. Insane things that they're being encouraged to do. And also the influencers, these influencers who live unreal lives. It's their life, but it's a life they've built and created that no one else could possibly have. And we now find that not only children, but adults are getting depressed and even suicidal because they can't have that life and they don't understand why not. And then they said, well, then I don't want to live this way anymore. They compare a normal real life to an unreal cyber life and can't understand why that's not the way it is. And it's not really a life. It's a performance that someone is putting on, pretending to be that person.
I
And
so like that you brought that up because that's so huge. And that's something that, we see with celebrities and the whole, Barbie
same thing.
complex and the whole, just that, but we don't necessarily apply it to online personas. And I love that you said that because that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where they find almost everything now. That's where they get their information and their news, unfortunately. And that's another issue, fake news. It's been thrown around politically, but it's a real thing that it's very hard to find a news outlet now that's not on one side or the other, that's not using a social or a political agenda and disguising it as fact. I wrote for the New York Times back in the day when you had to be honest and get the facts right and prove everything, those days are gone. And I have adults coming to me saying, well, what news should I be listening to or watching? And it's hard to give an answer because nobody is really down the middle and putting the facts first and taking the commentary out of it. And it's
Yeah.
hard for kids too. I mean, I do make a list of safe resources for children or teens where if they're going to research for school, that kind of thing, they really want to just be safe in that I can trust this. But they don't understand sometimes. Like they'll go on. I gave a project one time and I said, look, only factual sites. And I told them how to find them, how to judge a fake website, that kind of thing. And they were coming back at me, and I make them do citations and everything else so I can see where they got it. And they understand that's another thing. Copyright laws. We take things off the internet and use them, and you can get sued even if you're a child. They'll sue your parents. So, but what they do is they go on sites like Quora, and you might have seen that. That is just people talking and giving opinions and going back and forth. And they were using it as their factual references. And I'm like, what part of this don't we get? That is not fact. And the same thing with Wikipedia. People have been fighting over that for years. There are really good things on Wikipedia. The way you find out is you go to the bottom and they're supposed to show where everything came from. If they can't show that those came from verifiable sources, like encyclopedias or medical journals or whatever it might be, then I would say, no, don't use that. But Wikipedia has gotten much better about that because they've gotten so much trouble because anybody could put anything on Wikipedia. So it's you have to just be educated, and it's hard for adults because where do they go to learn this? And not enough schools are even teaching it to the children, unfortunately. So there's this huge gap. We're almost in denial, like we're just going to cross our fingers and hope nothing goes wrong. No, it has already gone wrong. And generations of children now have been changed by it. Their behavior, their attitude, their belief systems, they can be convinced of anything. I mean, it is legal online to post things from terrorist organizations, like manuals, like how to build a bomb. I used to tell my kids, don't ever let me find out that you, as a joke, went to Google and said how to build a bomb, because you know what's going to happen? The FBI is going to be knocking on your parents' door. This is not a game anymore, but that's legal. You can teach someone how to be a terrorist online, but you can't have certain political or religious or social beliefs because the companies themselves, the social media companies, will shut you down. They are deciding what we can and cannot see. So it's really almost impossible to get to the truth. You'd have to watch every different news station, and then it'd be like, well, but they said this and they said that. I don't know how we fix that until they can stop that and now throw ChatGPT into the mix. I
Right.
wouldn't want to be a teacher in a classroom or even a homeschool and have to be able to figure out, how do I make sure my kid didn't just do that and use it the wrong way? Because ChatGPT not only will like write things for you, and this is for all parents, be aware of this. It used to be teachers could see when somebody created something, some kind of a project or an essay or whatever. Oh, suddenly they sounded like Captain Kangaroo, but now they sound like Shakespeare. It was easy to tell it wasn't them. Now you can tell ChatGPT, I want to write an essay on the American Revolution and make it sound like I'm a third grader. They can actually do that. And don't tell me our kids don't know that.
Yeah, it's
So,
really crazy. They
wild.
have my son's really in getting into AI and teaching himself some things, and it's he's been showing me what he's been doing and what it's able to do, and as I
Good.
learn more, it's really interesting. I find that it's a great tool and it's something that you
It
can
is.
use, but it's definitely something where you need to understand what it's capable
Exactly.
of and be monitored as well. I mean, it's pretty, as homeschoolers, we can definitely be involved in what they're learning and stuff. It's not like we're a teacher in the classroom. And for us, we used to have that program when internet plagiarism was huge, and
Mm,
I was an English teacher in high school, so it was
me
like,
too.
okay, so it was pretty obvious back then, right, it was pretty
Mhm.
obvious, like you said, but we used to be able to put a string in if we thought it was funky looking
Right.
and then
You
see if
put
we
it
can
in
search
and then it
for
would
it.
tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, which was really kind of cool. I'm imagining there will be some sort of something perhaps in the future that'll be something like that, just because of necessity's sake. But I so So this and that story that you told, I absolutely hits my gut every single time. It just oh, I am such a mama bear for all kids, and
Me
it
too.
is so crazy to think that that's happening out there. And really, the relationships I think is really what you were talking about is so important. And that you guys know I'm all about intentionality and being intentional. And homeschooling is learning through life, so it's really important that you keep those and develop those family relationships so that you can have an amazing opportunity for your kids to come to you and say, you know what, this is kind of funny. Like, I don't know why this person said this. Is this a real thing? I don't know. This seems funny to me. My son, even researching AI stuff and researching, backgrounds in economics and things like that. And he comes up with some stuff, and I'm like, buddy, that actually is not how it works. And we have a discussion about all that. And it's really powerful because he goes, oh, he's like defending it for a second. And then he realizes, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
I love that for sure. So, what are some practical ways that we can really teach ourselves and do things for ourselves to keep kids as safe as humanly possible?
Yeah. Oh, just a word on what you just said. There are some success stories as well. The one that stays with me also, and why I keep doing this, is I had an eighth grader, same age as the girl that got herself in trouble. And he went to his mom, and his mom emailed me and said, my son has been telling me every day what you do in your classroom. And I'm like,
Uh-oh.
that's the one that you're like, what happened? And she said, I just want you to know that he told me that Miss L, they called me that because my last name was stuff, said that we have a thing called a digital footprint. And whatever we put out there, even if we delete it, it can still stay there, or somebody might have grabbed it, and it can come back to hurt us years from now. So he told his mother that he has made a decision, that he has worked too hard. He was one of those really super duper devoted kids, um, to get into high school and do well, and to get to college that he wants to get to, and to get the job he wants. He said, and I'm not going to let something I did that was so dumb when I was in sixth grade ruin it for me. So he shut down all his social media.
Oh,
That
that warms
was
my heart.
astounding to me, but it was because he wasn't afraid to talk to his mom,
Right.
and made it was his decision. That's the thing, is we can't just clamp down on them. We have to kind of guide them and say, I want to be part of this, and I understand, I'm just trying to keep you safe. There's a way of getting that communication to continue. And of course, she was thrilled, I was thrilled. That was rare, but I think if you just even give them some information, that you have information maybe they don't, and you can say, well, did you know that this happened, or this could happen to you, that kind of thing. So what we can do is try to be a little bit more aware. Like, for example, if they're young, you start setting the boundaries. You don't let them put apps in. You can block an awful lot. Now, it depends on, it's of a computer versus a phone versus a pad. They're all a little different. Chromebooks tend to be easier to control, and they're not as expensive, honestly. There are plenty of smartwatches and smartphones. Gab, Bark, there's a lot of different companies where they can still communicate, and nobody would probably even know that, because the factor of their friends knowing, oh, they don't have an iPhone, they have this. You probably wouldn't even be able to tell. They could still communicate. They would have that safety factor. You would have the peace of mind that they could get to you if they needed to. But it doesn't allow phone calls other than to back and forth to numbers that you have put into the phone. And also no downloading, no internet access. That would be something I would recommend right away, is, give them that kind of a phone or a watch, so that they don't feel out of place with their friends. And also they understand they're not ready for this yet. They may think they are, but they're not. You could choose safer browsers. There are things you can do with like YouTube and whatnot, but as I said, they don't work. I'm hearing from parents, they tried and things still got through. So it's really just limiting screen time is so important. It's affecting them physically. We find that kids are now having trouble with their eyesight, because if they're always on a device right in front of them, they lose their vision distance in the vision. Wait, vision distance. I was right the first time. And they're having to wear glasses early in their life when they wouldn't have been wearing glasses, things like that. They're having problems with their body parts. Everything you can imagine is happening to them because it's too much screen time. But it's also the effect of the addiction. That is a real thing, digital addiction, and it's very dangerous. So you can do that, keep the lines of communication open, and you can just set parameters. Like say, okay, you can have this much time, but you got to do your homework first. You work out a deal with them and let them negotiate with you and be part of it, but also consequences. And the first consequence should not be take it away from them. You can gradually get to the point where they understand each time you do this. I thought we trusted each other. You showed me I can't trust you. So now I'm going to trust you less. I have to. And I'm going to keep an eye on things. So it's their decisions that are going to drive what happens, not that you just, drop the hammer on them. And it's hard because I have this huge list of apps that no child should ever be on. There's an app called Yik Yak. It's kind of under the radar. It's been around for a very long time. And what it is they will only let you be on it if you're within, I think, a 10-mile radius. So it tracks where the person is, the child is. And it's only people in their area that can be in, and they create what's called a herd, the yak. And they point somebody to be the leader of the herd, and they get everybody else in the herd to pick one person, and they bully them. And they're people in their own community. Yes, it encourages bullying. It's anonymous, so you can't track anybody. Adults can go in there, and you would not know they're adults. And this is an app that's been there for far too long. But if you don't know and you see Yik Yak and it has a little funny little caricature, you don't realize this is incredibly dangerous. So it's just finding the information. That's why I tried to put it together so it seemed manageable, because if you go online and you just look up like internet safety or online safety, all this stuff comes up. But unfortunately, most of it is either useless because it's just too big. Don't talk to strangers online. Kids don't know anybody they've never met is a stranger, but they don't see it that way. Or it's overwhelming and it's too detailed and it's just too much to go through. So I try to put it together in a way that it's like, okay, I understand this, and it's also systematic. What do you do about this? What do you like? I have this whole section on how do you know your child's device is safe and ready for home and school use? And in some cases, it's the same thing if it's homeschooling. But there are things that you need to know about the way their device is set up and how they're using it. And right there, you would cut down on a tremendous amount of trouble because you've already got the protections in place. And it doesn't have to be draconian. It doesn't have to be real punishment in their eyes. But they have to also understand and constantly talking to them, tell them the stories, and just look it up online. The terrible things that have happened to children because they just didn't know how to protect themselves at an age appropriate level. You don't want to give them nightmares. You don't want to scare them and all of that. But you also have to make them start to understand, I am not going to control everything you do. I can't watch everything you do. So I'm going to have to trust you. But we have to work together on this. And if I see that you're not making good decisions, it's my job as your parent to protect you. And I'll do what I have to do to make sure that's happening. Because as much as we think we're so smart, we're not as smart as the bad guys at what they do. And that's adults too. I see seniors. I mean, it breaks my heart. And I have even a program for them. They lose everything they've had because they picked up the phone and they thought it was Medicare or whatever it is, and they got fooled. So nobody is beyond or above this. But the more the parent knows, the more they can make more knowledgeable decisions about how do they want to handle. And it's also the personality of the child. If they're addicted or they have behavioral issues, it's going to be tougher. And and there's just different things you can do about that. But then you have to really start monitoring more carefully. If you go on Facebook, there are parent groups just for this. And it breaks my heart every time I watch somebody come on and say, I didn't know. Like when one woman had set up everything that she thought, and she talked to her child, and we had a great relationship. And then she came back on, she said, I just found out that my daughter's been watching pornography for months. The child found a way around it. And she was beating herself up. That's the first thing we can't do as parents. If we don't try to learn, then That's on us. But if we try to do the best we can't account for everything, but we certainly can lower the odds of something bad happening. And it's also a life lesson for our children that the decisions you make, there will be consequences. And I'm trusting you to make good decisions. If you need my help, I am here. Let me help you. Because if you try to do this alone, it's probably going to get worse. So you have to form that bond where there's not the fear of if they find out, uh-oh, so I can't let them know. So, and it's a thin line, and it's, again, personalities. There are some kids that they just keep doing it over and over and over again, no matter what the consequences are. That's another behavioral thing to deal with. But it
And
means it's
developmental too.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep,
Yeah, because they don't have that consequential thinking yet. They don't have that until much later.
right.
And so and even in high school, I mean, ninth graders, no consequential thinking, especially boys, but 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 it's okay. My son's right there. But it's so interesting. And I love what you said about just being really prepared and knowing, always learning. Always, I remember, you guys, I'm always about setting the example. We are students first, right? So we're always setting the example of that inspiration of learning. And so really digging into that ourselves. And also one thing that I hear a lot, and I don't know, I'm sure you teach this too, Lisa, is the doing whatever you're doing in tech or screen time stuff, like in public, in the family public spaces. So like
Absolutely.
not having, closed door with the phone, or with a computer in their room.
Never. And only for like schoolwork, and then has to be shut off. I remember seeing a news story about a family who the parents said every night when the children are going to bed, they give them a hug and a kiss, say, I love you, give me the phone. And they put the phone in the parents put it in their bedroom. And that's another thing. Every once in a while, after they've gone to bed, and don't do the same time every night, take a peek. Just walk in, because they wait until they think you're not going to check anymore. And there they are on the devices. And that's when they really get into trouble, because it's late at night. Well, depending upon where you are. But the point is, there's no overseeing what they're doing at that point. And it's also, they're not sleeping. They're not doing everything they should be doing to be ready for the next day and all of
Right.
that. But it's also just what they're getting into, because they're probably communicating with other people who are not supposed to be doing this either, or a predator or something like that. So surprise them. But yes, the common space where they can up to a certain age, you can really get away with this. And also, do not let them use your logins. Every person in your family should have their own separate internet login, or access, because then you can check. You can go into Johnny's, and you should have all this information, or you give it to them. And if you try to go in and Johnny's password's different, it's time to talk. Okay. But you can see their history. And that's another thing. If they erase the history, which they, of course, know how to do, that's a conversation. What are you hiding from me? Why'd you erase your history? These are little things
Absolutely.
you can do. It's always at the top bar, and you
Yeah.
drop down, it says bookmarks or history, something like that.
Yeah.
Depends on your
Yeah.
system. And you should see, if they're on the internet all the time, you should see
Absolutely.
all these things listed. If suddenly it's not there, or it doesn't look like it could possibly be right for them, or you're like,
Right.
what is that? Click on it, go into it, and see where they're going. And the
Right.
same thing, if they're downloading, they should not be downloading things into their devices. And be aware that almost every device, iPhones, no matter what it is, the default is open. So if they're going to share and on social media, it's going to go to everyone on the planet. They should only be sharing
Right.
with people that they're at least a little more aware of. And if they're going to do something, they should have to be able to open it up. And it's the opposite. If
Right.
you hand them your phone and you have your credit card on Amazon, they can order. They'll find their way in, and little kids have done this.
I'm
Um,
sure they're like,
yeah,
"Ooh, pizza."
yeah. But we don't realize, like, even if you have the family setup in
Yeah.
your phone, the default is open. So
Right.
anybody who's on your phone can go in there like they're you. You
Right.
have to actually opt out, which it should be the opposite, but it's not. And
Of
that
course.
goes for any device. Don't hand them a device without checking. And also, GPS is automatically on. They will
Right.
automatically track. So if they send a picture And let's say you went to the Bahamas for a vacation, and then we're having a great time on the beach. The bad guys find the picture, run it through some software. It says, okay, they right now are in the Bahamas.
Not
They
home.
find out your address, they go rob your house. I mean, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
So don't let them tag this phone tag, geotag pictures, or wait until you come back. Tell your kids, I know your friends probably want to know. Wait until you come back. Send them all the great pictures because
Yeah,
it's an
exactly.
automatically open setting. So either turn it off so it can't be geotagged, or just don't do that. Don't advertise that you're not there. I mean,
Exactly.
it's crazy that we have to live this way, but there are some really easy things that we can do right from the start, and also, be careful of what the settings are when you do give them a new device. Don't let them mess with the settings. The defaults are not good enough. You do, like as I said, you have to play with the defaults. But everything should be no unless you say yes.
Right, right, right.
And once they get a
Exactly.
little older, then you start to negotiate the terms of it and say, look, I'm going to check. Hey, your house, your Wi-Fi, your money bought everything. Your rules.
Right,
Don't be
exactly.
afraid to say that. That, well, it's my
Yeah.
phone. No, it's not. Not until you're old enough.
So
Okay, you want to get a job, you want to pay for the phone, you want to pay for the Wi-Fi, then it's yours. But until then, it's just keep reminding them it's your job to protect them. If they were
mhm.
not feeding you, they were not clothing you, they didn't give you a roof over your head, whatever it might be, they would go to jail. That would be negligence on the part of the parents. This is just as important in terms of your child's day-to-day safety as anything else is. But the law doesn't see it that way. And our kids don't see it that way because everything online is telling them, you've got rights, you can do anything you want. They're wrong. They can, but they should not. And you don't have to allow it. Just know when to draw the line between being too much, too overprotective, especially if they haven't given you a reason to worry, although you don't want to wait until it's too late. But
Right.
have you had, like, we used to have the talk when we were kids, it
Yeah.
was the birds and the bees.
Yeah.
Me, the talk of the 21st century is, what are you doing online? You being careful,
Yeah,
being safe online,
absolutely.
right?
Right,
Because
yeah. That's so
unfortunately,
huge.
that's more dangerous than almost anything right now. So that's what
Absolutely.
I
I
think.
totally agree. And this is so powerful. Thank you so much, Lisa. Oh my gosh, it's so many tips, you guys. So much information already. And I don't know about you, but I definitely feel like everybody needs to take advantage of Lisa and her opportunities. So, Lisa, how do we connect with you? How do we? And I know you had something that you were going to share with our community as well, something they can download. So, what is that, and how can we get in touch with you?
Well, the gift I'm going to give everyone is something that I put together to show parents how easy it is to know what's going on and how to do something right now. So it's 10 ways you can protect your child online. And I go through each of the categories and actionable items that if you just do this one thing, you've now taken a step towards protecting your child. You can also share it with your child or make them understand it as well. But things you can do as an adult to help them make better choices or make them a little bit safer. So that's going to be coming to you. And also, I'm on Facebook. It's Online Safety Success. I have a group where you can come, ask questions, share, get tips from me. So that's one way that we can communicate directly. And also Lisa at onlinesafetysuccess.org. You can email me any questions you might have. There's no bad questions. As teachers used to say, the only dumb question is the one you didn't ask. And the one you didn't ask might be the one that would have made the difference. So it doesn't matter what your background is. You could know nothing. You can know a lot. What I've discovered is the more I know, the more I realize what I don't know. Because every day, as you said earlier, it gets worse, it gets different. There's always something new coming at us or something that you've just never heard of before that could be a problem. I would also recommend going on Facebook and joining those parental groups, like parents, what is it, concerned about technology? It's something about parents and technology. The stories will scare you, and they should, but it's also a wake up call. And also, it's a nice community, those groups where they share the stories and they share support and ideas. So you can ask, what kind of a phone do you recommend for my 5-year-old, or whatever it might be. So find these communities online, or you can contact me and I can give you names of, the ones that I would say, yeah, I would definitely sign up if you're on Facebook. And please keep your kids off TikTok if you can, YouTube. That's where they're getting videos that are causing their behavior to change and to encourage them to do things that are absolutely ridiculous and dangerous. Or do the best you can to monitor it, see what they download. What videos did they watch this week? What are they watching when they go on TikTok? If they won't give you their login, then they shouldn't be able to go on at all. And go in as them, not say, oh, I'll friend you. No, because you don't see the same thing. You don't see what they're really doing. They should be able to give you their login, their username, and their password for every single thing they do. And if they say no, then that's the time for a conversation about, well, that maybe we have to talk about some restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you said, it's changing all the time. We need to keep up to date, and definitely I think everybody needs to take your course. Everybody needs to work with you because
Love
it's
to.
a easy step-by-step pattern, and I think that's what it can be so overwhelming, and so we really need someone to help guide us through it all. So thank you, Lisa, so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate all your information, and I am so excited that this community has access to you and that the homeschoolers and parents in general just have an ability to get ahead of the game a little bit and just to keep, at least keep up keep up so we
Yeah.
can keep up with the changes. So Lisa, thank you so much, and we will see you guys again next week. All of her information and the freebie and everything will be in the show notes. It will be in the comments, and you'll be able to get all the information. So all right, you guys, see you again next week. Bye bye.